Hello again and welcome to Dad's Desk. This is Rusty. In this video we're going to start taking the controls to add a new record using an SQL command. However, before we do that, whenever our user clicks on add, we want to take the control over our form. We will need to enable these text boxes so they can enter the data, but we also want to disable some of these buttons and the controls so then when they click on add, they add a record. We don't want them to click on add and then be able to navigate throughout the database. Okay, so to do that, we'll start off, and this may take a couple of videos, but we'll start this and we'll say something like adds a new record or cancels. I'll put that in uppercase C, the add. So on this we'll say with me, and we'll add some extra methods or subroutines, as I used to call them, within this one, so we can kind of group things together and make it look a little bit neater. But we'll say if.btnadd.text equals double quotes, and the text itself is an ampersand because I used a shortcut key, then an uppercase A and lowercase d's. The text must match up character by character on this, whatever is in the text property for btn add. Otherwise it will not work. If that is the case, then we're going to perform some steps here. Else we will perform some other steps. So I'm just putting in some blank lines at the moment. We are going to do a process of enabling the form so that my user, if it says add, that they can do some operations. So after the end sub, but before the end class, I'm going to create a method out here, or a subroutine, that says, we'll call this one private sub, and I'm going to name this one enable form, open close parentheses, and for my documentation I'll say enables the form for adding a new record. Okay, another little with me statement. So the first thing is to take btn add and set it to enable. Now, one thing I did do, and I better mention that right now, you will notice I added between the videos here a new button called btn save. The text is ampersand save, and by default its enable property is false, so they cannot click on save until they click on add. Alright, so let's get back to our code there. Right off the bat, I want to say now that .btn add.text equals double quotes ampersand cancel. So I'm changing the text. Then I'm going to say that .btn save .enabled equals true, but btn first, next, previous, and last will equal false. So .btn first .enabled equals false, .btn prev .enabled equals false, .btn next .enabled equals false, .btn last .enabled equals false, okay, and .btn lookup, because I don't want them to use the lookup button either, lookup .enabled equals false. There we go. Now, the read-only property for the customer number is not going to change. I'm not going to change that at all because I will use the program to select the next customer number. My user does not enter in the customer number, as you will see later on. Then we'll say, though, that .txt fname.read-only equals false, and .txt lname.read-only equals false. Very, very good. Now I'm going to leave a blank line here because there's another method that we're going to call in just a little bit. However, one other thing I will do is I'm going to clear out the content. So then I'll say .txt fname.text equals double quotes, and .txt lname.text equals double quotes. All right, then I'll put in my blank lines. So the next thing that we want to do there is come back up here, and I will call enable form, open close parentheses. Now, if I'm going to enable a form, at some point I need to reset that form. You know, when they click on that add, if it doesn't say add, the else portion. So I'm going to set my code back to square one for that one after the end sub, but before the end class, I will say private sub, and we'll call this one reset form, open close parentheses. Documentation resets the form to the original settings. Here we go. Okay, and then just in the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to just take this entire with statement, Control C to copy, come down here, Control V to paste, and I'm going to change the btn add back to uppercase A, lowercase d. There we go. I'm going to change true to false and false to true, so false. And then we'll just change each of these back to true. There we go. In fact, what I'm going to do is just highlight that, Control C to copy, and then come in here just in the interest of time, right? And change each one of those back. Take this one and that one, and I don't need to have this one. Okay, so I'm just going to take that and delete that because I don't need that to be in there whatsoever, and then we'll just take out some of these blank lines to make it look a little bit better. Now, the next thing that I want to do after I come back up here under the else portion, and I'm going to call here reset form. There, just like that. I also want to go out and get. Remember here I said a minute ago that I'm going to go out and get that last customer record. I'm going to use an SQL command to do that, and I'll create a little method down here. I like to create sub-methods because I think it just helps keep me organized, to be very honest. So I'll say private sub, and we'll call this get last, oops, without my caps lock on, last cust number, NO, okay, and we'll say here that it assigns the new customer number. Okay, we'll say dimension DT for the data table, new cust no as new data table. The SQL statement, let's scroll that up so we can see it a little bit better there. We'll say str data source equals double quotes select, and then we can use the command last. Okay, last cust no, we're going to get that particular field, okay, from customer. So we're going to get the last customer number, that last record in there, and then we'll say here dimension data adapter, oops, adapter equals a new OLEDB dot OLEDB data adapter parentheses str data source comma CONN str1 because that's the database that we're using right now. Okay, and we'll say data adapter dot fill parentheses DT new custno data adapter oops dot dispose open closed parentheses, and then so we can assign that new number into the custno field, we'll say that int new custno equals convert to integer parentheses whatever's in DT new custno dot rows sub 0 dot item sub 0 whoops 0 let's get without the shift key held on plus 1, so we're going to increment it by 1, and then we'll say me.txt custno dot text equals convert to string c str parentheses int new oops new custno. Bingo, just like that, close parentheses. Very, very good. So at the end of enable form, let's scroll back up to this one that I said we were going to add that. We'll just add the routine here. We'll call that one get last custno open close parentheses, and then the last thing we want to do back up here on btn add after reset form, we do that, we want to go back and load up the first record. So I'm going to call me.btn first underscore click parentheses, sender, comma, E. We're going to send that event and call that one. Right now, you notice I've got some extra blank lines right now, and that's okay. So let's take a look and see how that works. So very quickly, we'll do a little start or an F5 when it loads up. If we want to remind ourselves, we can click on last. So 1027 is the last one. Let's go previous a little bit there. When I click on add, changes to cancel. Notice now it's 1028. That's my new one. We could do a dot focus. Probably would be a good idea to put our cursor there. But if I click on cancel, boom, it moves me back to the first record, and I can navigate through. If I click on add, again, it moves that one, but you will notice I cannot navigate because I disabled those buttons, and save we have not coded at this particular moment. So I click on cancel. So that's how we can get things started for adding a new record. Okay, as always, thanks for watching.